In ancient Egypt, they used baboons to catch criminals. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show, presented by Allstate. Throw your hands up. As always on our great Monday show, well, not as always except for last week, me and Charlie Kravitz are joined by Bill Barnwell. Welcome back, Bill. We missed you last week, buddy.
Missed you. I was at the Las Vegas Ren Fair, according to Domonique Foxworth.
I'm sorry. So I asked him what he was doing while he was gone. He said, I went to a festival. And I was like, was it a music festival or a Ren Fair? What was going on? I was just throwing out things.
Guys,
I want him to know it's a safe place.
Guys, we're going to need to cool the temperatures here because Bill sits down and he's like, last week was awesome. I didn't have to deal with you guys. My life was so much better. And I was like, oh, what'd you do? He's like, I went to a festival. And I was like, oh, what, like a Ren Fest? A Ren Fair? Did you dress up like Robin Hood and ask, where art thou?
Oh, man. Well, I'm sorry, Bill. I said music festival or Ren Fair. I wanted to give you the breath to know that this is a safe place. I did say music festival or Ren Fair. Okay, now you.
I don't know about that.
All right. Well, was it a Ren Fair?
No, it was not a Ren Fair. It was not a Ren Fair. I'm sorry. But it was in Las Vegas. So you figure a Ren Fair is least likely to be happening in Las Vegas of all the possible festivals.
I missed your great insight. Charlie, where you want to start?
I'm just so excited to hear you guys discuss these games. We had a great slate this weekend, but we're going to start. Put your hands back up. With the check-in presented by Allstate. The earliest check-in in history, but
wow.
It's because Jared Goff he's so hot right now. He was 22 for 25 again as the Lions handed the Vikings their first loss. He was the first one to sort of pierce the Vikings defense, the vaunted Brian Flores defense. And this is coming after a week where we had some, not trepidations, but we wanted to see how the Lions would respond once sort of the adrenaline wore off post-Hutchinson injury. We had the news this week that maybe he's going to come back for the Super Bowl, but they responded by being a dominant offense. Was this performance enough to quell any concerns for you about their lack of pass rush?
No, because they didn't compensate for the pass rush. The pass rush still wasn't there. I mean, they still did well as they needed to on defense, but this has kind of become an offensive team, and that's how they're going to be led. I think when I look at them, and this is probably a good generalization for how I'm looking at a lot of teams this season, is when I look at the Lions in isolation, I'm like, all right, they're good, but they aren't like great. And then I think that they can get beaten by someone else. And then I look around the rest of the conference and I'm like, are any of these other teams even good enough? And so it's kind of like by comparison, they're incredible, but they have some big holes that I would at important places that I would normally say is disqualifying. And that's like pass rush. You got to have some sort of pass rush. If it's blitz generated with great coverage in the back end, or if it's just front four, you have to have some way to consistently get pressure on the quarterback, and they don't.
Yeah, Sam Darnold had plenty of time to throw the football in this game. They were even commenting on it in the broadcast, which is usually not typically something that's going to comment on this kind of stuff as the game goes on. There's no pass rush whatsoever, and that was the case for the majority of this game. They're either going to have to find a pass rush or be so good everywhere else that they can just win shootouts. And this was not like a 45-44 kind of shootout, but it was an offense-first game. And the difference between kind of the old Lions and the Lions we saw on Sunday was that Jared Goff was unconscious under pressure. And that this has been the book on Jared Goff as long as we have been doing this, as long as we have been talking about football, going back, some would say, to the Stone Ages, to the original Renaissance. The book on Jared Goff has always been get pressure on him, and he's a different guy. He routinely ranks among the bottom of the league's quarterbacks in QBR when he gets pressured.
Which is why it would have figured that this Vikings matchup would have been tough. I'm sorry, Bill,
Yes.
did you have more?
I have a stat. I came back with numbers. That's what Las Vegas gave to me.
I missed
Jared
Stat
Goff.
me down.
Jared Goff under pressure on Sunday, 11-12 for 164 and 2 touchdowns.
Oof.
Jared Goff was unconscious against pass pressure in a matchup where not only did the Vikings take an early 10-0 lead, but in a matchup where you would expect, to your point, Brian Flores to have all those exotic pressures dialed up, to have Jared Goff shook. And Jared Goff got taken down a couple times early in this game. It wasn't like he was great from the very beginning. They got pressure on him early, and it didn't matter because Jared Goff was playing on a different level. And to me, yes, I think the pass rush is a problem. Yes, but if this is the actual Jared Goff we're going to get the rest of the way, this offense is unstoppable.
Yeah, the old Lions would be a problem without Aiden Hutchinson. But I think that the remaining boxes that this team needed to check, one of them was Jared Goff. But I think we all kind of checked that box last year in the playoffs. At least I did. And not saying that he was going to be great, but I know that he has the ability to make those tough plays from time to time and to come back in situations like in this game. And I think the point that you were making about the pass rush and Jared Goff under pressure is why this game was a very important one for us to watch. And I know that the Lions understand that, because in watching this game, you saw that their number one priority was to make sure that Jared Goff was protected. And I know you can say that about most quarterbacks or most game plans, but it's not true. You watch this game and you watch the type of personnel that they had on the field. They motioned a wide receiver over at one point to join into the protection. It was clear that these guys were going to check release. They were going to stay in. Mm-hmm. And the way that the Vikings have been tormenting everyone is with a lot of sims. So they get you to react as if it's a blitz and gets you a free runner, but they're still only sending 4. And you don't know which side or the middle that it's going to happen on. So it seemed like the Lions were determined to keep everyone in until the Vikings declared where the pressure was coming from. Then the people on the backside were released and stay. So there was none of that issue where you get a free runner on a 4-man rush, mm-hmm. and you still have 7 back in coverage. That's what's killing people, because you can't have a blitz and have coverage at the same time and think you're going to win. So the Lions were determined to figure, and they were running the ball in those situations, doing draws, doing all the things that we know can give the Sims trouble, because like a draw would work, particularly because the Sim is a guy backing out. So he's going the wrong direction if you're running a draw right at him. But anyway, the bottom line is the Lions were determined to make sure Jared Goff was not going to be, even if he was going to be blitzed, he wasn't going to be pressured too much.
When you say Brian Flores was working the Sims, I'm just imagining him with those little video game Sims running around, just an exclamation point over their head as they're panicking. That was not Jared Goff in this game. Jared Goff was chill. Jared Goff's life meter was absolutely intact throughout the entire game. And we saw, they were able to hit shots on the Vikings. This was not a game where they were dinking and dunking the ball. There were big plays from Jahmyr Gibbs. Monroe St. Brown had a big play against the pressure. They were very comfortable finding shots and taking them downfield. And that is how teams are going to beat this Vikings defense, is making them pay when they want to come out with that exotic stuff, running the football on them, and then hitting big plays when they do bring those big pressures.
On the continuum of Music Festival to Ren Fair, where does Playing the Sims land? Is it midway? Is it closer Ren Fair? Is it closer Music Festival? Or is it not on this paradigm at all?
There's not a lot of, Sim City or The Sims at Ren Fairs. I feel like you try to keep those two separate.
Can I learn? I love Sim City when I was a kid. Oh, I love Sim City.
This Dominique's brain just broke because one of our producers brought up The Sims 5 minutes before the show, and Dominique's like, "What is going on? What is going on?"
Nothing's wrong with The Sims.
No, it's just I feel like you probably hadn't thought about it in years, and now.
I loved Sim City when I was a kid. It was great.
Dominique just having Godzilla attack the Detroit Lions. That was Jared Goff on Sunday. That Jared Goff was the Godzilla attacking the city of Minneapolis with Pablo Torre in attendance, by the way. The Vikings 5-0. 6-0?
Yes.
6-0. 5-0. 6-0. 6-0 without Pablo Torre. 0-1 with Pablo Torre in the audience.
Us too. This show is undefeated without Pablo on it.
Why was Pablo there? Did some celebrity give him a seat where he could sit next to them and then make himself the center of attention whenever the camera panned over there?
Nah, he's working on a story about Filipino safety for the Vikings.
I guess they'll really miss him at the Liberty game tonight.
All right.
How are they? I don't know how they're going to play that game without him there sitting courtside.
They're going to have an empty chair, I assume, for Pablo.
I don't know who's going to miss him more, the Liberty or Pablo being seen at the Liberty game.
Definitely him being seen. I do want to I think we have to take the Vikings seriously as an NFC contender, and this was a bit of a bad sign for them in this game. It didn't seem like they didn't seem like the buzzsaw that they had been leading up into this game, and this defense was obviously beatable, and because that's the strength of that team right now is how well the defense is playing, creating short fields, creating turnovers. It's not like they didn't create turnovers or short fields, but they didn't control the game like they have been for most of the season so far.
Well, I mean, our whole thing, at least my whole thing so far this season has been, listen, the Vikings are going to look dominant when they get up, 10-0, 14-0, 17-0 in the first half, and they can play from ahead the entire game. But let's see them when they have to play from behind. Well, the Lions got down 10-0 because Dan Campbell called for a speed option from his punting team on fourth down, gave the Vikings a short field for an early touchdown, went down 10-0, and the Vikings still blew that lead. So I think the concerning thing is we saw a formula that worked for Minnesota, and the Lions just said, screw it. We're just going to beat you even with that formula. So that's the concerning thing for me, is that maybe even that formula we felt so good about might not be quite as strong as we thought.
And honestly, I mean, I know that the Vikings forcing turnovers is part of what they do so well, but that game would have felt even more like a Lions comprehensive victory if there had been the David Montgomery fumble 6 that got returned. I do want to read you guys the Vikings' upcoming schedule, because they have the Rams, the Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Bears, Cardinals, Falcons, Bears. We might look up, and this team is going to have a crazy record going into December or going to Christmas week.
Don't get fooled. Yeah, I mean, I that's unfair to the Vikings because they were the don't get fooled team. Was that last year?
2
years ago, where they won a bunch. This team is different. They are an actual good team, but I think this is a reminder that they're playing against what happens when they play against a higher level competition. But I mean, they've beaten some high level teams already, including the Texans, which I think we still think is a high level competition.
That stink from 2 years ago is so hard to get off of them when we were all looking at that point differential, and it was like, oh, well, they have a minus 75 point differential, but they're 12-1. Do we think this team is actually decent?
There's no way they're going to lose at home to Daniel Jones in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, got massacred.
Bill, I got a question about this coming out of this game, because it's like very clear that and we'll get into more of this of how good the NFC North is. It's very clear that the Lions are clearly a Super Bowl contender, but this is almost without precedent what would actually happen, because this is a quarterback who's not one of those guys. He's not a Hall of Fame guy. He's not your John Elway, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and they don't have a dominant defense. And I was looking through results, and I cannot find something like that happening, where it's either you have an all-time defense or you have a truly dominant quarterback. Would this be, if you look at something where you would take a step back and be like, wow, this is a sort of a changing of the guard that you can build these offenses with quarterbacks like this in the modern NFL?
I don't know. I mean, the team that comes to mind for me are the Flacco Ravens, where they did not have a great defense that year. So they had a lot of injuries. I think Ray Lewis was out for a chunk of the year. Yeah. They,
out for 8 weeks with torn bicep.
Yes. They did not have the defense we associate with the Ravens, but they got hot during the postseason. And to me, I think that's the question for the Lions is, I don't think this version of this defense can win 4 playoff games, but can a hotter version of this defense win 4 playoff games? Can they go out and get somebody at the trade deadline who will make the defense a little more likely to get hot during the postseason? Yes, I think they can win with that version of Jared Goff as well.
And this version of Jared Goff is a version that's putting up numbers like great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
However, I think that there's still, I mean, at least to me, it felt like he played at a higher level in the playoffs last year. And I think he's capable of doing that again. So in those situations, I don't know if it's going to be the defense showing up and making a play or Jared Goff taking it to some other level. But I do, it's a comparison to everybody else. It's like, yeah, you might be right about this unprecedented situation, but if he's going to play, and I think that's the truth about that Ravens team. Joe Flacco played like a Hall of Fame guy.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that's how that happened, and maybe it'll have to be similar for this team.
Can I read you guys a tweet? This is from Eric Woodyard, the excellent Lions reporter for us at ESPN. Behind winner Jared Goff, Lions deal Vikings first loss. In his last 4 games, he has a 83.5% completion percentage, setting the record for the highest completion percentage over any 4-game span in NFL history. He's reliable, Dan Campbell said. Man, if I set a record for 4-game periods in the history of the National Football League, and my coach is like, "Oh, he's reliable," man, screw that. I'm holding out the following week for a raise. That's terrible.
For more than the money that he already got.
After Campbell forgot to give him the game ball.
Yeah. I'm going to need Lions fans to get off my back because your own damn organization doesn't respect this man, calling him reliable after he's had Drew Brees-like numbers for back-to-back weeks.
So I tried to look up where he was in conjunction for the single-season completion percentage record, and he's at 73.6%. He's right off of Drew Brees' record. But that's like, oh, this is a pleasant surprise. If the season ended today, Jaden Daniels would be setting the all-time single-season completion percentage record.
Here we go.
The worst
trying to force in the Manders. They can't be the top
man,
of the show.
Push them down. Man took the final 3.5 quarters off today, and Charlie still wants him in the show.
I mean, look, even if he hadn't had his ribs turned into jelly, that guy would have had his helmet popped off. He would have had some ice on the knees, relaxing on the sideline. But let's talk about the football games that matter. Okay. So, another NFC North team. This was another one of the games of the year. I feel like we had like 3 games of the year today when we were looking forward to it. The Packers and the Texans. The Packers pulled out a win where Stroud had 86 yards. Their offense just doesn't look explosive without Nico Collins. Meanwhile, Jordan Love is just like a walking explosive play. And that's not to say he was flawless. He certainly wasn't. He had 2 interceptions today, but he had 3 touchdowns. And it begs the question, it's a bigger story to you, how Jordan Love has looked since returning from injury, or how stuck in the mud CJ Stroud and the Texans offense looks right now.
I mean, I think it's the CJ Stroud and the Texans stuck in the mudness because it's not consistent with how I personally view CJ Stroud and watching through the season, how poor the numbers have been and how ineffective the offense has been. But in this game in particular, it felt like on third downs, the O-line was just getting beat. Yeah. They were giving up pressure, quick, fast pressure. And it also seems like they just have an offense last year that was predicated on successful early down runs. And this year they do a lot of early down runs that I would not say are always very successful. What do you think, Bill?
No, they're not working. That's the number I have to bring to this conversation.
Ooh, stab me down.
The cheat code for Kyle Shanahan offenses is they dominate on first downs. Last year, Niners number 1, Dolphins number 3 in yards per play. I think the Texans were 12, so they weren't quite on the same level, but still very good on first down. This year, they're back below league average. On Sunday, 3.8 yards per play on first down from the Texans. Only teams who were worse were the Giants and the Browns, 2 teams who changed quarterbacks multiple times on Sunday. So that's a testament to how bad this offense was on first down. And then you end up in third down. You end up in a position where, a Packers defense can send all their exotic pressures at you, where you have to be stuck, creating plays. You can't work out of the play action game. You have to be a drop back passer. And as good as we think CJ Stroud is, and I still think CJ Stroud is an awesome quarterback and made some incredible plays in this game, especially the third and long that set up the field goal that gave them the lead very briefly in the fourth quarter. You're going to struggle in those moments. We saw him struggle against the Vikings in those moments. He's going to be an inexperienced, vulnerable quarterback because every quarterback is going to look inexperienced and vulnerable when they're stuck in third and long all day. And that is the conflict for me with this team, is that they added Stephon Diggs this offseason. We were all excited about the passing game, but there were real concerns about how often they were going to throw the football. They were a run-heavy team last year to protect C.J. Stroud, and this year they're still a run-heavy team, but they're less efficient running the football the vast majority of the time when they do so. I know Joe Mixon's made them better, and Joe Mixon's had some big plays, but they are not an offense that consistently carves out gains on the running game, and so that something has to change, whether it means the offense is more efficient running the football or whether they just lean into the pass and throw more on early downs to make Stroud's life easier and lean into more play action stuff. Something has to give because this is not a 1 week issue. This has been a problem for the Texans throughout the entire year.
And that wide receiver room hasn't been exactly what we expected it.
No.
Like Nico Collins has been out for an extended stretch, and he's clearly established himself as the best receiver on that team and one of the best receivers in the league. And having him out matters. Stephon Diggs, I think his name is better than his talent is at this point, which is not to say that he's not good, but he's not a true number one at this stage in his career.
I don't know that
You disagree?
You see Stephon Diggs picking a fight with the entire Packers team before the game? That's number one wide receiver behavior.
Apologies. I think Stephon Diggs in his head is the same way that when we look at him, we're like, yeah, he's a number one. And then you watch him and you're like, oh, he's a really good number two. And I think Tank Dell coming back from a series of unfortunate events, he's not the same level of talent that we expected him to be. So I think all of these things combined suggest that it's not as obvious and easy to organize an offense around playmakers that aren't exactly the ones that you expected to be there and not the level that you expected them to be.
Can we take a second? We can get into the actual receiver room a second. Can we give this quote that Stephon Diggs said about getting into it with all of the Packers the amount of shine that it deserves?
Okay.
Because he said, I'm never going to be the bigger person. And I love that. I love that for him. I've never felt more like Stephon Diggs.
What? You what? You've never felt more like Stephon Diggs, or you've never liked him?
Having a grudge that you'll never be the bigger person on is the most relatable thing in the world.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like I don't see you as the guy who's like, I'm never going to be the bigger person.
No.
That's who you want to be. That's not who you actually are.
Exactly right. I'm trying to get, I've spent enough time with Domonique. I have like small little DB things that come out from time to time.
Little cornerback in your life. It's nice. Feels good.
It just reminds me so much of the Kevin Durant tweet when he went on Twitter and someone told him to relax. And I'll get this one. Exactly. Also, it's in 2021. We said, "There's no relax, champ. No relax when I'm on Twitter. I'm on 10 until the second I close the app. You relax." And the fact that that's how Stephon Diggs just lives his life is glorious.
Oh man, Stephon Diggs is an MVP on and off the field at all times.
But wasn't an MVP in this game when the Texans needed a wide receiver to be called. I mean, he was not the worst problem with this team. The offensive line struggled. Tank Dell had no catches on 4 targets. Stroud, it wasn't like his best game by any means, but this should have been a game the Texans won comfortably. The Packers basically gave them 2 short fields with turnovers, 1 muff punt that led to a Mixon touchdown, and then I think a Watson interception, another to Watson that led to a touchdown. Like, if it wasn't for the Packers making mistakes, the Texans would have been blown out in this game.
Way to transition us. You do everything, but you give us stats, give us jokes, transition us back to football. Yeah, transition me down. I think we need to give some love to Jordan Love also. Before we give love to Jordan Love, I would like to take a second to appreciate that beautiful trap that the Texans ran on the first drive of the game to create the interception in 2-man. It was outstanding. I know you guys don't appreciate it, but they had trips to the field, and there's a 3-by-1 with the 2 options underneath. The outside nickelback rotated back in, got his hands on the ball, created a tip interception. It was a beautiful trap.
This is Thursday show stuff. This is the Sunday show, Dominique. This is strictly vibes. Come on.
I'm sorry, you're right. No dots today, but I just rewatched that. It was beautiful. The other interception that he threw was not nearly as impressive a defensive scheme.
Bill, you know what Dominique was just saying?
What?
He was just saying, I missed you last week. That was a love letter from Dominique.
I did miss you, Bill. I'm happy to have you back, man. I don't care. And you came back hot, too, so you can go to a Ren Fair whenever you want. Try to plan them around midweek so that you can be here for the show on Sunday night. Okay, buddy?
Nothing sounds more exciting than a Wednesday afternoon Las Vegas Ren Fair.
Ren Fair.
That is just the peak of popularity to me. Jordan Love, are we sitting here feeling like we're learning more about him? To me, it feels like he's kind of been the same guy every week this year, which is a player who makes too many mistakes to be someone I'm not worried about, but someone who has too many big plays that I can never write him off.
Yeah, I mean, the story of this game to me, for the Packers side, the positive story was not about Jordan Love. Like, to your point, Jordan Love gave you what we expected Jordan Love to give you and what he's been giving us for much of his career. The story was this defense played well. And I have been one that's
without forcing a turnover.
Yeah, and so last week coming into this game, I was saying I'm not sure about this Packers defense because it seems like, and if you take the turnovers out, they're like a middle of the pack defense. But it could be also that I have a higher opinion of the Texans offense than they actually are. And this Packers defense played well against them, but I saw them creating pressure on important downs regularly. The coverage in the back was good enough. I mean, Romeo Doubs had a better game than I would have expected against Derek Stingley, or at least made big catches in big moments. But generally, like, I was more impressed with this Packers defense than I expected to be.
I'm going to transition back now, the reverse transition. Should we be concerned about the Texans on the whole? I mean, this team, so far this year, they were 4-0 in one-score games before yesterday. They almost got to 5-0
Stat me down.
in one-score games.
Stat me down.
The only team they have beaten by more than 6 points is the Patriots, who they beat by 20 points. They had a 2-point win over the Colts, a 6-point win over the Bears, a 4-point win over the Jaguars, a 3-point win over the Bills. Like, we all expected this team to take a step forward this year. And I think they're still going to win the South. I think they're still going to be a playoff team, but they don't feel any better to me than the team we saw last year.
Yes, Bill, I totally agree. And I think there's like huge question marks. They have we've referenced the 2022 Vikings. This Texans team has a +6 point differential. They have the same point differential as the Indianapolis Colts this season. And the names don't correspond with the performances. I was talking about this with Domonique before the show, but there's like a legitimate disconnect between the coverage of Stroud in this offense from like the tape perspective and what it seems like watching on TV. And I know that Dominique's pointed that the pressure rate on him is insanely high, but I don't see this unless something drastically changes with this team and the way that they operate to be more surprising to defenses. I don't see how they're going to be a team that we thought they were coming into the season.
I mean, they aren't.
Yeah.
They haven't been, and there's no reason to expect them to start being anytime soon. Like, I think maybe when Nico was there, the return of Nico Collins could give you some encouragement, kind of like AJ came back to the Eagles, and then all of a sudden they seem like a much better offense and team. But that team is also a team that's similar in that they're bringing a lot of cachet from previous years and from names that we recognize, but it hasn't really translated on the field.
You said cachet like it was you were really going to impress us with that word. I appreciate that. It was a well-timed cachet. I mean, the only problem is though, like what are we basing this on? If our comparison is, are they one of the best teams in the AFC? Well, all the teams we think are the best teams in the AFC have major flaws. Are they the best team in the AFC South? They only got to be better than the Jags, Tennessee, and Indy, and they are a lot better than those teams. So I'm not concerned about the Texans being a playoff team. I just think maybe our expectations were too high.
Yeah, and I think it's timing and all this stuff. Like CJ Stroud was 13th in QBR last year, and he's 15th this year. And like I think we all agree that he has so much talent. He seems to have so much command of the offense, but might not be there yet to lead a team that's flawed.
Sounds like you're calling him you made Justin Herbert, Charlie.
No. Actually, that's pretty good.
I didn't think about it. He knew that you were making fun of him, and then he was like, "Oh no, he's trying to help me."
That's
I love the instant rejection before the the resigned acceptance.
I just did the kombucha meme in real life.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, you've seen it.
I probably have. I'm confused.
The cachet of the kombucha meme is really bringing a lot to the show.
Yeah, I generally think that's one of the hardest things that we have to do when we're analyzing these games or analyze these teams is try to separate the previous opinions, except for when you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah,
where I every year walk into the Chiefs and like, no, I'm going to analyze this team like I do every other team. I will not be seduced. It was that one Super Bowl that they lost to the Bucs where I was like, all right, never again will I just say, all right, Patrick Mahomes is the answer to the question, period. But this team somehow manages week in and week out to overachieve based on what my perception of this team is. But the fact of the matter is, they just good enough. They're just good enough every week.
Domonique, do you have anything? We should get into the Chiefs 49ers game, but do you have anything to say on behalf of defensive backs for what Patrick Mahomes? Because it sounds like you're talking from a lot of hurt from what he did to that safety on the goal line and his little slow waddle around the corner where he was just pump faking, and the 49ers defense was terrified of him.
Oh gosh, I have no defense. I'm sorry. I apologize on behalf of all DBs everywhere. Because what you can't have is a man that's slow outrunning everybody, which happened, and a man that's not particularly strong or physical running over someone to get in end zone. Which absolutely happened. Like, if you're going to lose to Patrick Mahomes, it can't be because he's taking tiny steps around the edge and doing pump fakes while he's 12 yards down the field to juke you around the sideline, and then also running quarterback draws and run through somebody like you Jerome Bettis. It's unacceptable. You cannot be Derrick Henry and also Christian McCaffrey and also still be Aaron Rodgers, prime Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's not fair. It's just not fair. Rule changes need to be made. No more roughing the passer on Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, so let's start with the weird scramble. Domonique, as a former defensive back, if I'm walking down the street and I see you and I pump fake, even though we're not playing football, are you jumping?
I'm jumping.
You have to.
I love the
works.
ball.
It works.
It's so great. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try it. I'm just going to pump fake. Well, not when I leave here.
Fake shovel passes, too. The shovel pass pump fake.
Ooh.
It's I can't explain it. I'm not going. It's happened to too many people too many times for me to like have the reaction that my instincts tell me is like, come on. Like, don't be stupid. But it's happened to enough people enough times that I'm like, no, there's just some instinct about it that where you shake the ball, they're gonna react to it.
And this is the Chiefs, where it's not out of the question they would call for a lateral 15 yards downfield. Travis Kelce would absolutely dial it up. So I understand. I'm sympathetic there. Getting run over at the goal line, though.
Yeah.
I did not know that was in the cards for any defensive back and Patrick Mahomes. And if you see, there's actually a really good clip
defensive
of Mahomes.
Player. Any defensive player. Forget defensive back. There's nobody on the field that you expect Patrick Mahomes to run over.
Maybe a mascot. Maybe one of the side judges. There's a clip. Like, it's right in Mahomes' face, and you can see him preparing for the hit, and he's like gritting his teeth, like he's nervous. Like, you could tell he did not want to be in that situation. Like, he was not looking for this at all. But then he like opens his eyes and he's knocked the guy over, and then he steps right into, I'm just, he's mean mugging, he's like snarling. It's so great. It's exactly what I would do in the same situation. Sheer panic, and then realizing I actually did the thing I was supposed to do. Just total confidence, like I've been there before. It was so great.
Yeah, it was less great for me. It was still pretty cool, but it was also a little like a little disappointing. Like, it wasn't great. At least it was a safety, not a corner.
Yeah, and the other bad problem is that's probably the thing the Chiefs do best right now is Patrick Mahomes scrambles and Patrick Mahomes running game, because they're pretty much bad at everything else on offense.
The quietest 6-0 two-time defending champ. Yeah. And all we talk about is how they're not actually good on offense. And then beat this 49ers team 28-18.
I mean, all right, but this 49ers team is not the 49ers team that
we should get into that side.
Neither are the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Sure.
We should get into the 49ers of it all, because they lost Brandon Ayuk today to what we think, as of this recording, is a torn ACL. The injuries are piling up. We saw Christian McCaffrey. He is alive. Yeah. He is back
in the States.
Back from Germany. Yeah. But
he's speaking with a very conspicuous German accent now, though.
But is this just a lost season for the 49ers? They're 3-4, and they have just so many injuries.
The tough thing about this team is they had special players, and I think their offense was unique, and it was built around the uniqueness of these players. And when you don't have those players, it's hard to create an offense that is on the fly, that is going to take advantage of those opportunities. And it seems pretty straightforward how to stop this team, or at least slow them offensively, because they don't have anybody that commands your attention. And I think that generally offensive strategy is to, whatever you do well, is do that and force the team to compromise some other portion of their defense in order to stop you from what you do well, or in order to help protect against a unique player. But I look at this team and I'm like, all right, what am I scared of? Especially now, like, what am I scared of? What is my biggest concern when I walk into this game? There's nothing. It's like Debo when he's not sick, maybe. But other than that, it's like they don't have a dominant rushing attack. They don't have a special running back. Their wide receiver, who's supposed to be the separation god, can't get separation, and now he's hurt. And Ayuk, like coming into this season, that was the biggest argument, is Ayuk deserves to be paid like all these top receivers. His production hasn't been as good as theirs, but that's because of the offense is holding him back. He creates separation. And then I watched the third down tape last week all season, and he's hip to hip with people, and he can't get any separation. So this offense seems to be in a bad spot. And Purdy is playing better and better in my view. Like, he seems to have more. He didn't play great in this game, but from season to season, this seems like the best version of Purdy that I've seen. But it means nothing if they don't have any, if he doesn't have the help that he needs.
First half of this game, 17 plays, 56 yards, 3.3 yards per play, 2 total first downs.
Ooh.
Not great.
And Kyle is wearing it on his face too. Like Kyle looks like he's going through it, man. He's not shaving. He's got long hair. It's a bad look.
Kyle looks like he spent too much time at the Ren Fair.
You're not gonna let that one go, huh? How many callbacks is too many callbacks? I'm sorry that I said you went to a Ren Fair. Accept my apology and move on. I'm sure you were dancing at a big cool guy rave.
You know me. Like, how can we get more condescending? Domonique found a way.
How's that condescending?
Oh, cool guy rave.
I don't know. I'm not condescending. I'm not cool. I said cool guy rave.
Wearing your
I don't
cool
know.
jeans, Bill. I want to bring it back a couple of years ago. 49ers were 3-4. They had just lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. They'd already lost their starting quarterback, Trey Lance, for the entire season. And they made it to the NFC Championship game, and maybe would have won the NFC Championship game if it wasn't for the fact that they ran out of quarterbacks by the time that game was over. And the reason the offense improved is that they got Christian McCaffrey. And that, to me, is the saving grace for this team, is that maybe they get Christian McCaffrey back and a lot of this stuff doesn't matter anymore. And maybe it's not going to be that simple. If you don't have Ayuk, if you don't have a healthy Debo Samuel, Debo's been in and out of the lineup all year. This is not just a 1 week thing for Debo with this illness. If the defense is not as good, maybe because of losing Javon Hargrave, they're not as deep up front maybe as they've been in the past. But Christian McCaffrey elevated that Jimmy Garoppolo version of this team dramatically forward. And I think Brock Purdy is a much better quarterback at his best than Jimmy Garoppolo was a couple of years ago. So to me, that's what you're holding on to. Maybe they make a trade. Maybe they go out and get somebody between now and the deadline. They've been a very aggressive team in years past. They could go out and get, maybe they go and get a defensive player. Maybe they get another, piece up front. Maybe they go out and get a cornerback. I'm not sure. But to me, you're hoping that McCaffrey changes your fortunes. And that's a very risky bet because McCaffrey is coming back from mysterious German Achilles operations. But like, that's as exciting of an opportunity as any. Like, if Christian McCaffrey was on another team and the Niners traded for Christian McCaffrey, we'd all be like, hey, maybe this is their opportunity. Maybe they got the guy who's going to make a difference here. Maybe their season's not over. To me, getting McCaffrey back is like trading for a superstar as long as he stays healthy.
It does give you that jewel, that centerpiece that I'm talking about, that thing that requires defenses to pay attention. It requires them to compensate or to compromise other portions of their coverage and rush in order to address him. And maybe that opens up other things for other people. But this has been a rough season for them, from Ricky Pearsall being shot to the holdout and Ricky's back. But I mean, it's just to Christian being out and Debo's illnesses and now Ayuk's injury. It's just a rough year for them.
Can't forget Trent Williams also held out.
Oh, yeah. He held out. He held out and he punched today, which that's a good sign.
Dude,
I like an angry Trent. I don't like an angry Trent, but I think 49ers fans like an angry Trent.
I don't think this team is left for dead. I think if McCaffrey gets hurt again and he's out for the rest of the year, then I'm giving up. But as long as McCaffrey has a shot of coming back, I feel like I'm still in on this team.
Crazy stat from this game, which was, let me pull it up, which was tweeted out by Josh Dubois. Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy combined for 21 for 42 for 230 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a 27 passer rating. That would be the lowest combined passer rating in a game since Saints Broncos had 11 in November 2020, and that was Taysom Hill versus Kendall Hinton. Yeah.
They had a receiver and a not receiver.
Receiver and a tight end.
Yeah, receiver and a tight end playing quarterback. That's amazing that happened. Oh, I erased that from my memory.
I was going to say, pivot to the NFC writ large. Because we just talked about the 49ers where it's going to take a return of Christian McCaffrey from 2 injured Achilles. At this point, just we're looking forward, is there anyone outside of the NFC North that you really think can win the conference? Because it looks like they might have the 3 best teams.
Nope.
Charlie, you're not throwing the Commanders out there?
You know he wants to. That's why I went with a quick nope to free up space for Charlie. we have given you the red carpet, Charlie.
Domonique will say, look who you're beating.
What? You can't. No,
Domonique will say this.
No 8 miling. No 8 miling. That's not an argument for saying all the things that I would say.
Domonique will say that your defense isn't good enough yet. Domonique will say Cliff Kingsbury can't call an offense after week 9. Domonique will say that your quarterback might have not all of his ribs attached to his spine. You know what I say to that? You can only play who's in front of you. You can only kick the out of who's in front of you. We have a superstar quarterback who's the best quarterback in the conference. And you know what? All Dan Quinn has to do is get his defense to average. What are we talking about with the Lions defense? Just be in the middle of the pack. And we have there's a few unstoppable guys in the league. Washington has one of them. So put us in the dance and let's see what happens.
Oh gosh, I like that you pre-addressed all of my concerns, but the one concern that you did not address is also the reason why you're going to have success. You said the man may not have all his ribs connected to his spine, but you also said he's unstoppable. He finished the second half of this game in street clothes. And he also has a propensity for throwing his body ribs first into the face mask of defenders. It goes way back to college. So I believe in him. I think he's great, but this is a lot for a young team, man.
37-0. Like that's when he would be in street clothes whether he'd played the entire first half or not.
So rest of the schedule for Jaden Daniels and Charlie's Washington Commanders. Bears next week, the game that Jaden's going to duck because he doesn't want to play Caleb Williams. At the Giants, who can't score touchdowns at home, hosting the Steelers, at the Eagles, hosting the Cowboys, hosting Tennessee, on the bye to rest those ribs, at the Saints, who might be on their 6th-string quarterback at that point, hosting the Eagles, hosting the Falcons, at the Cowboys. Are there any games, Charlie, that you think the Commanders should lose in that stretch?
Should lose? No. Will lose? Maybe
one.
This is ridiculous. I've known Charlie for a long time, and he is a beaten, battered fan. And even when the Commanders would have a lead, he's like, they'll blow it. But it's taken, what are we on, week 7? It's taken about 4 or 5 weeks.
Not even
now
that.
It's like 3 weeks, and now he's Patriots fan in the middle of the Tom Brady dynasty. He's like, oh, no, we're going to find he's going, he would make fun of we guys. He's like, this is what we got.
What position do you play? I asked people that so many times.
Charlie was the guy that when someone else said he was, so, what position do you play? Are you a coach? Where's it going? And now he walks in like, we had a good one today. We are beating the out of all these bad teams, though. That's what good teams do, right? This is Charlie in our meeting before the show.
Here's the thing is, I just hope we get to see Dak Prescott with some playoff stakes on the line, because that's gonna be beautiful for our relationship.
Week 18, Commanders at Cowboys. I would say for the division title, but I assume the Commanders will already have locked up the division title at that point. It'll be Marcus Mariota beating Dak to keep the Cowboys out.
I believe it.
It's a tough scene.
Are there anybody else in the NFC? Like I think most people, give the Eagles respect, and I mean they're definitely talented enough.
Here.
But I know you and I both have moved off of the Eagles, but yeah, I think the NFC is it's a 1-division race.
It feels like the 3 best teams in the NFC right now are all in the North. And now all the bluster about the Commanders aside, like it seems like the Packers and Lions, like when I look at it, the 2 best teams, and the Vikings are right there.
If you could take the 3 teams in the NFC North or the field to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, who are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. You always take the field anytime you're given the field as an option, except for when you're given 3 teams.
I was about to say it was 50% of the playoff teams.
Yeah, I think generally you're like, all right, I'll take the field, because with 1 team, so many things could go wrong. But with 3 teams, I feel pretty confident that one of these teams will make it. to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I would take those 3 teams.
I would definitely take the 3 teams in the NFC North.
Definitely. Wow.
Yeah.
So you would come. You disagree?
I'm going to follow the rule of taking the field. You just laid out the rule. I'm just going to follow the rule and take the field, including the team that makes it to the NFC Championship game every single year.
You're a better gambler than either of us. I mean, I don't gamble. I don't think Charlie does, but I think the rule.
This is a new episode now. I can bring this up again. I only went to Vegas for the rent fair. I wasn't gambling while I was there, Dominique.
You weren't. I feel like you were partying with Tyrese Halliburton. I think you and him was popping bottles and giving shout outs to 50 Cent. It was. You think he regretted that this morning, or you think he was proud of that post?
Dude,
Did you see this post? He was congratulating 50 Cent on his residency.
The thing that I was wondering, how much anxiety did he wake up with when he realized he posted something when he was obliterated?
I don't know. So I guess you wouldn't make an affirmative argument for anybody else, though. And that's the tough thing. Is like, it's just like, the argument you're making is, something's going to happen. Because if I asked you to rank the best teams, you would go 1, 2, 3 with those 3 teams, right?
Yes.
But now you're like, it's the playoffs. Something happened. They'll have to play each other. One will knock each other out. Someone else will get hurt, and then who knows?
I mean, are we totally? Like, I guess no. Go Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay. Like, we've seen enough holes in Minnesota's game that I feel like I'm not. I don't feel like I'm missing out if I don't get the Vikings in that conversation. Put it that way.
I mean, I think you're right, but the hardest part about this is I could punch holes in all 3 of them, which you can always punch holes in every team, but they're like glaring kind of big holes for these teams. But again, it goes back to the conversation we started this with. When you look around at the rest of the teams, they have bigger holes at more important spots. Like, we have a reliable defense in the Vikings, a reliable offense in the Lions, and a great quarterback and reliable offense in the Packers. Then I look at the rest of it, it's like, I don't know, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, beyond the bluster, look at it. Like, NFC East, no. NFC South, no. And if the 49ers are not, I guess,
Seahawks?
Are the Seahawks totally out of here?
No, man, but
I was just saying the odds of it
the Falcons
now.
today.
We've seen that defense too. So we're talking about teams that don't have good defenses. I mean, I guess they'll get healthier and get better. And Mike McDaniel's defense took a while to take hold in Baltimore. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's a get right at the hot times, or get hot at the right time. Not right at the hot time. I get right at the hot time.
Getting right at the hot time is also good, just in different ways. What else do we have, Charlie?
Bill, how'd you feel watching Saquon Barkley eviscerate your Giants?
Oh, this must be the last topic. It's got to be the last topic.
Wait, you guys want to talk about Deshaun Watson?
No, thank you.
Okay, we're on to Saquon Barkley for the last topic.
But I just mean you want to lose Bill. You want to lose Bill.
This is the final sketch before SNL ends for the evening. But you know what, Charlie? My conscience is clear here. I know that I wrote when Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones were both about to be free agents, the Giants should have signed Saquon Barkley to a multi-year deal and franchised Daniel Jones and had him prove that his 1 year of being even a competent NFL quarterback was a fluke, or wasn't a fluke. It turns out it was. Here is my stat for you guys. This is the ultimate. This is the YouTube stat me down. The last time Daniel Jones scored a touchdown at home as a member of the New York Giants, the head coach on the other sideline was, any guesses?
Chuck Noll.
Jeff Saturday.
Even better.
My man Jeff.
I love Jeff. I like this is Hurt Fan 101. It's like, rather than embrace the fact that we got our kicked, you separate yourself from the team and point out how you told them not to do the that they did. And you are with us, everyone else laughing at them.
Me and the team, we are moving away from each other. I am driving up the turnpike. Bye, guys. Have fun with Daniel Jones for the rest of the year. You just benched him in the fourth quarter so Drew Lock could give your team a spark. And it turns out that did not fix your offensive line, your receivers, your running game, and your quarterback. Apologies, Malik Neighbors. You don't deserve to be involved in this conversation. You can come with me up the turnpike. Everyone else, you're staying in Jersey until you figure this stuff out. I mean, I know that Saquon Barkley was saying people were booing, and there were fans who were booing, at times, but it honestly felt like the majority of the fans there appreciated that Saquon Barkley didn't have to be stuck with this mess, even though they have to be for the remainder of the season. It felt like, like seeing your much smarter friend graduate and go to a better college than you. Like, oh, great, have fun at Harvard. I'm going to be here in community college back with my friends. That's what it felt like to me. It's like Saquon Barkley got to elevate himself, and you appreciate that, even if you know that's not for you.
Good luck getting your 2-year degree, New York Giants. You can build on that. Nothing wrong with a 2-year degree. I will say that I'm disappointed that Bill is not as upset by the Saquon assance as I would have liked.
Saquon Barkley has more touchdowns in MetLife this year than Daniel Jones.
Oh, gosh. The last thing that popped into my head, we got to go through the list of the saddest phrases at some point that teams use, like – give us a spark. The desperation phrase. Yeah. Oh my gosh. We were trying. That's essentially like, we're throwing at the wall, guys. We just put him out there. We don't think he's better. We just needed a spark.
How did you feel if a coach told you to go out there and play for your guys?
So, I mean,
you're not going to win. Just don't make a fool out of yourself for the other guys.
So this is, fortunately, most of my teams were like competitive, and we were not out of the playoffs until the times I missed the playoffs was like last game of the year type of stuff. But what I did, no one said go play for your guys. It was always selfish. It was like, hey, don't put no on tape. You don't want to put bad on tape. That's when you're in desperation mode, you're trying to motivate people. You can't be in week 8 going into the meeting talking about, hey, guys, I know it's hard, but everybody watches the tape. The whole league is watching the film. You don't want to be a guy putting bad stuff on tape. If you are talking like that in the week 8 Wednesday, that's a bad place to be. And there are a lot of teams that are walking in the building and coaches looking for a way to motivate his guys. And he's like, hey, you got to play for that next contract. Play for that next contract. You got to show them that you can still play. It's your character. That's another thing. Is like the film is your resume. The film is your resume. This is a character moment. You want to be a guy who keeps fighting. Oh,
this is a character moment.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's like, this is a test. Like, people going to be watching the tape, and they want you to stand. You want to stand out and say, this loves ball. It doesn't matter what the score is. Doesn't matter if they got a chance. This loves ball. So glad I'm old. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for another great episode of the Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. Throw your hands up. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Bill. Thank you to all the great producers. Podville, I love you. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.